Guys, welcome back to the Girl Gone London channel. If you're new here, my name is Caitlin. I'm a dual UK and American citizen, and today we're talking about learning, namely things that I learned to do or hadn't done or experienced before I moved to the UK. So recent events have prompted this video because I am driving again in the UK after 5 years of not driving in the UK because I may have crashed my car 5 years ago into a stationary vehicle because the sun was in my eyes. Listen, it happened so fast. It was in October and I didn't veer off the side of the road or anything, but people park across the road, and by the time I stopped, then the sun glare and it just hit me and it happened. I know. So I'm starting to drive again, which means relearning how to drive in the UK, which means thinking about all the things that I hadn't done in America before moving to the UK. As always, I have a nice list to keep us on track. So let's start with number one. One of the things I wasn't experienced with was reading what we would call in the US military time, but basically the 24-hour clock. So I also just got a new phone. And this sounds like I'm living a life of luxury, but I was using a phone from about 2015. They don't even support it on Apple anymore. So I needed a new phone. And because I set it in the United Kingdom, sometimes I set my devices to pretend like I'm in the US because of the spell check and things. It is showing my time, especially when it comes to like the weather, with a 24-hour clock. So 14 is like 2 o'clock. And 16 is 4 o'clock. The 24-hour clock is often used in the UK. In fact, on my computer now that is set to the UK, it says 14:35. In the US, this is not common. We differentiate between the two by an AM or PM. So it's 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. We don't really read 24-hour time that easily because we don't use it that much. We call it military time, I think, because in the military they do use it, but us regular civilians don't typically read time like that. So moving here, I would find myself constantly having to subtract 12 from any number above 12 to make sure that I have the right time. And to this day, so this very day, there are some times when I have to double and triple check that I'm reading the right time and that I'm getting the right time because I just was not used to a 24-hour clock. I mean, I was used to 24 hours in a day, but like I said, a clock in the US, typically digitally, we would not go into 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and so on. It would just be like 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. The next thing I've learned in the UK has to do with gardening. This also brings me to the fact that this video is sponsored by Skillshare. Now, Skillshare is something I've been using for the past couple of months to learn different things. I've learned about like bird watching in the UK, different birds that I can spot in my garden, photography, and this month, I have been using Skillshare to learn about gardening. So gardening in the UK does differ from gardening in other countries, particularly a state like Florida that has an entirely different climate. So I'm taking a gardening class on Skillshare called The Gardening Calendar by Mark Shorter, and it is incredibly helpful in teaching me exactly when I should be planting things, when I should be harvesting things, and the best seasons for things. So for example, I have learned that summer is the month for strawberries. Here's a picture of a strawberry haul from our strawberry plants, which is amazing. This differs from where I grew up in Florida because harvesting season for strawberries there based on the weather is in February. So getting used to the UK gardening calendar, quite literally, has been really helpful in making sure that we can grow some things. And like I said, our strawberries are doing really well, but now I need to know what to plant now so it's going to be successful later on. If you do want to check it out, I have 1 month free for you. So use the link in my description, and the first 1,000 people to use this link will get 1 month free of Skillshare, so you can check out the gardening calendar or other classes to figure out what do you want to learn this summer? What do you want to add to your knowledge, your skill set? Maybe it's gardening, maybe it's something else, but hopefully you'll join me over on Skillshare and use that link in my description. Now let's get back to the video. The next thing on my list, something I hadn't done ever in my life before moving to the UK, was measuring things in grams, and I'm specifically talking about in the kitchen. So here in the UK, especially if you're baking, really, or just cooking, measuring things with a kitchen scale in grams is the most common way to do it. It's the most common way to write recipes and to use them. So for instance, I was making something the other day and I needed like 400 grams of peppers, 200 grams of tomatoes, and I measured all of these on the scale. In the US, we love the cup system. So things are often measured in cups or ounces. Measuring something via a scale is typically something in the US that you might do if you are a baker, and that would be like somebody who is actually good at baking rather than the home baker. I certainly have baked cookies, cakes, brownies, whatever in my lifetime in the US. Never measured anything like that. Always measured in cups. So here, most things are easily measured in grams, and I do agree that it is more exact. So I think I'm team measuring in grams, but it's something I had to get used to. Okay, so the next thing on my list is using or experiencing the term sort code. And if you're in the UK, you'll know immediately what I'm talking about. But if you're in the US, you probably won't. So in the UK, every bank account has an account number and a sort code. This is across every bank. This makes it super easy to transfer money between bank accounts. I can easily send somebody with a different bank money with no extra cost by using their sort code and account number. In the US, we don't use the term sort code and we don't have sort codes. We have account numbers, we have routing numbers, we have different kinds of numbers. It's getting easier, but it is still more complicated to send money for free between bank accounts, whereas here, this has been common for quite a while. But yes, if you use the term sort code to an American, they probably won't know what you're talking about. And sort code and using sort codes and how to transfer money here was something that I had to learn. Now, the next thing on my list wasn't something that I had to learn necessarily before moving to the UK, but it's something that I learned how to celebrate once moving here, and that is fireworks night or bonfire night or Guy Fawkes night on November 5th. I had never heard of it before moving here, and fireworks night, I'll do a whole separate video about it another time, but essentially it is practically celebrated with fireworks and a giant bonfire that people gather around eating hamburgers and hot dogs. There might be some mulled wine or hot chocolate, and going to fireworks night or experiencing November 5th as an important night for fireworks in the UK was definitely something to get used to. In the US, our main firework holidays, though we love fireworks every day of the year, is New Year's Eve and July 4th, Independence Day. And so these are really the 2 days of the year that you would like expect fireworks celebrations, buy fireworks to celebrate. So having November 5th fireworks night being a fireworks celebration in the UK just added another day on my calendar where I could light off fireworks. So that was something completely new for me moving to the UK. Now, the next thing that was completely new to me was the term Mr. Whippy. Again, if you're in the UK watching this video, it's summertime now and you know exactly what I'm talking about. I posted something the other day with a picture of a Mr. Whippy and said to Americans, can you guess the name? What would you call this? And most said, that's a soft serve ice cream or soft serve cone, which yes, it is, but it's not just that, it's a Mr. Whippy. Now, Mr. Whippy is the actual name of the brand of soft serve ice cream that is typically presented like this in the pictures. And in the summertime, you go to a Mr. Whippy van and you get a Mr. Whippy. It has to me, it has a distinct taste to it. Not bad or good or whatever, just different than some other soft serve I've had, but that just could be me. And so you will experience in the UK people calling this a Mr. Whippy. And like I said, I asked this question to my American friends and they didn't know the term for it. They would simply call it soft serve ice cream. So again, I didn't have to learn how to eat soft serve ice cream because I'm pretty good at eating ice cream. It's my favorite food group, but getting used to calling it a Mr. Whippy or understanding what people were referring to as a Mr. Whippy was something that I had to learn when I moved to the UK. Okay, let's go back to the driving. One thing I had never done, never in my life, before moving to the UK was driving around a roundabout. There was a very, very small roundabout, practically not even a roundabout, at a shopping center near my house growing up. We did not understand how to use this. I seem to remember I mostly drove over it. Like, the concept of actually using a roundabout for its purposes, something I had never done before moving to the UK. So really, I had to learn from the ground up which lane you were supposed to be in to use a roundabout, when you're supposed to put on your signal or indicator, and I find them relatively easy to use now, but if you get me on like a busy roundabout or a really big roundabout with lots of traffic lights, I panic a little bit. So I think I still need some practice, but I can do a basic roundabout better. And again, I haven't yet completely driven straight over one here, so I feel like I'm doing a good job. Another thing I had to learn in the UK when it comes to driving is using a parking brake. I know. Now, I'm not saying people in America don't do this, but what I'm saying is people in Florida don't do this. And that is because Florida is like the flattest state, I think possibly of all of the states, but it certainly is a very, very, very flat state. So growing up in Florida and learning to drive in Florida, putting your regular brake on, i.e. turning off the car, was basically all you needed to do. So we would actually call it the emergency brake, which would be like if you were careening down a hill that didn't exist and you needed to stop yourself. Here they call it the parking brake because there are lots of hills. Lots of times you might be like parking up a curb and you put the parking brake on. Something I drove for about 5 years in the US before moving to the UK, maybe 6. And like I said, had never at any point in time used this, what I thought of as an emergency brake. Never looked at it, never touched it. I think I used it to like put my headbands on. It was like another holding system. Never. Here in the UK, I always put my parking brake on every time I park. In fact, when I was first driving here, my husband had to keep reminding me to put it on. Sometimes I still think it's a little pointless if you were parked on a flat surface, but now it has become something that I do here out of habit. But funnily enough, when I'm in the US, unless I'm in a hilly area or state, my American habits come back and I don't typically put it on in America. And the final thing that I have learned since moving to the UK that I had never experienced before was a game called Rounders. Now, people try and describe Rounders to Americans as like baseball, but you just keep running, which is relatively what I experienced playing it. I will leave it to my Brits in the comments. This is going to be your challenge in this video, is to comment below, have you played Rounders? And how would you explain to somebody who's never played the rules of Rounders? Any particular Rounders memories, leave them below. Rounders is now losing all meaning. But yeah, so Rounders is a game that is very uncommon, not played. For the most part in the US, I was familiar with baseball and softball, but Rounders was something that I had to learn the rules for. And like I said, I'm still not entirely sure I'm positive on the rules because I keep getting it confused with baseball. But I would say that that was something that I had to learn. And the reason why I moved here as an adult and yet learned to play Rounders was because I was involved with students and also with summer camp type like leisure games. So it's not like my friends here just invited me when I was like 23 to a game of Rounders. It is typically like a game at school, but I did learn it when I first moved here. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's video. If you have watched all the way to the actual end, in addition to your Rounders commentary, why don't you tell me what's going to be our Easter egg for today? Easter egg, another word that a lot of you UK watchers say that you don't use here in the UK to mean something like a hidden, it's like a hidden secret, like a hidden thing to unlock. Particularly in video games, they use it. But anyway, the Easter egg in this video is, what is your favorite summer vacation / holiday destination? Is it somewhere warm? Is it somewhere that's cooler? Is it a theme park? Is it the beach? Leave the answer in the comments to let me know that you watched all the way to the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.